Welcome back. Myles High Pod, episode 3. It's good to be back. Thank you guys for joining in. Thank you guys for tuning in. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, the music was nice, right? All right. Well, let's get episode 3 started. Like I said, I want to thank you guys for joining in today. I appreciate you being here with me. The Myles High Podcast. My name is Myles Munroe Jr., for those that don't know. And here at the Myles High Podcast, I'm focused on entertaining you, educating you, and elevating you to staying miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations you may think exist. That's what it's all about here. And that's what I want to do each and every episode. So for this episode, I want to touch on something that, and I'm going to jump right into it. I trust you guys have had a good week, a good day, a good month, a good year so far. It's the year's going by pretty quickly. Hopefully we don't have as much setbacks as we had in 2020. This is the new year, and I'm looking forward to the new things that we're going to accomplish this year. So for this podcast, I wanted to talk about an issue that I've dealt with, an issue that I still deal with from time to time, and because I know I deal with it, I know it exists in others, and I wanted to share my experiences and the things that I used or that I think about when dealing with this issue. In order to assist you in hopefully getting over the same issue. And, that issue is trust issues. So this episode is about trust issues, right? So, coming up, whether it was a friendship, a personal relationship, getting older, getting into some business partnerships and whatnot, I developed some trust issues. I had problems being optimistic about my relationships. And a lot of it started when I was young, right? And, my dad had garnered some notoriety within the country of the Bahamas, where we're from. And he traveled a lot, did a lot of speaking and stuff around the world. So he gained a lot of notoriety around the world as well. And with that notoriety came, some good attention and some unwanted attention. You had folks that came into our lives, and when I say our lives, I'm talking about our family. My dad, my mom, myself, and my sister, our immediate family, came into our lives, and they may have had some ulterior motives. Not everyone. I'm not going to say this is about everyone, right? But those individuals who came into our lives, or even those individuals who were a part of our lives, whether it was longtime friends or longtime family members or whatever, and when they felt that we as a family achieved something, I guess, that they could benefit from or wanted to attach themselves to, motives changed, right? And it was something that I started to recognize, and I just started seeing people leave our family, or I used to see people take advantage of my dad. And, I always recognized this early on. I think my mother and I had this sense of intuition where we were a good judge of character, right? And, people who came into the lives of our family or, tried to associate themselves with my dad, we did a pretty good job of reading them, right? And I was able to say, this person's not, I don't think this person is a good person to connect ourselves to, or I think we need to watch this person. They're cool right now, but something's off, so that type of feeling. My mother and I would be on the same wavelength when it came to that. And over time, those intuitions started to prove to be correct. So you had people who, came into our family and started to take advantage of my dad, whether it was using him for his time, for their benefit, and not really compensating him or not taking care of him, the way that they should have. Or, people just blatantly stealing from him, whether it was resources, whether it was money, his books, his it was crazy, right? Coming up. And it started to, I could remember, I think it was about maybe 13 or 14 or even 15, somewhere along those, that age range, where like I automatically started to not trust individuals that came into, new individuals that came into my circle, either my personal circle or my family circle. And that, that sort of developed over time. And, as I became an adult, I just didn't trust anybody. And I knew it was an issue because it affected personal relationships. It affected business relationships. And I would just be so pessimistic about a lot of things. It was almost like this expectation of, I know you're going to do something to harm this relationship or try to harm me or try to take advantage of me or my family or whatever. So it was this expectation where I was just, okay, I'm going to wait until it happens because I know it's going to happen, right? And I always, like my dad and I had conversations about this all the time because he was the type of person that was super optimistic, right? And even if you showed him something negative about yourself, whether it was you had ill motives or you wasn't honest, a lot of the times, he was the type of person where he looked at you and saw the good in you and wanted to pull the good out. And he ignored, any negative signs or any negative things that you may say or do and focused on the positive things that he was trying to draw out. And man, he was a special individual, man, because to block out, situations that were blatant, right? And things that you shouldn't allow to be ignored. He really didn't pay too much attention to it. I think part of it was because of who he was and what he represented, as far as like, being a motivational individual, a speaker, a pastor, a spiritual advisor, a mentor. I think he saw it as his duty to just be positive and optimistic in any situation. Because I think with that, he wanted to lead by example. But at the same time, I think my mother and I were needed in the situation because we brought things to his attention that not that he didn't know them, but we brought another way of kind of dealing with it instead of just ignoring it. There was certain ways that we could have dealt with things, and especially on a business level, right, a professional level. And that's kind of what I used to focus on, right? So I wouldn't be too optimistic about new relationships or new friendships or new partnerships or whatever they were. And it was almost like this expectation of, man, I know it's going to happen. I'm just going to wait for it to happen. And so I'm not going to really get too emotionally attached or whatever the case, so that I could kind of protect myself. So it was kind of a defense mechanism, right? So that kind of trickled into my personal relationships and stuff. And, with the females that I dated and stuff, like it was difficult for them to maybe get to know me a little deeper or to get to a point where, we could really build as far as a relationship is concerned, because I just wouldn't open up. Because for me, it was like, look, I know that we good now, or you're good now, or you're saying everything that you should say now. But there's going to come a time where you do something that, is going to be unnecessary, whether it's lying, whether it's cheating, whether it's, whatever the case. And that kind of followed me. And I was this negative, pessimistic, non-trusting person for a very long time. I think, for the better of about 15 years, I had issues with trust. And for me, I didn't really recognize how negative it was until I was about, maybe 25, 26 years old, or maybe 27 years old. And I started to realize, like, man, I can't go through life like this. And I know there are a lot of you out there that may feel the same way, right? And it affects your thinking, it affects your decision making, and I don't think it's something that is healthy. And I remember my dad and I used to have these conversations, and I used to be like, man, how do you trust individuals, right? And how do you deal with like negative things that happen? Like, how are you so forgiving? Because my father, I was about to say my old man. That's it. We call him my old man. That's what he is. It's not, not any signs of disrespect. So sometimes when I say my old man, people be like, oh, you need to address him more respectfully. And I look at people like, yo, that's my father. Okay. That's my dad. Call him what I want. right? But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Yeah. But my father, he would just say like things like, man, I'm not focused on people. I'm focused on God speaking to me. Or I'm focused on the Holy Spirit, speaking into my spirit. And like he would say things like that, or he would say like, yeah, I know that, they show signs of immaturity, signs of being untrustworthy. But I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the positive things. Like I see a great leader. I see a great individual in this person. So that's what I want to focus on. And I'm going to allow them to, do whatever it is that they're doing in hopes that my response to them affects change in them. And, he would use like, Judas Iscariot as an example, which was, Jesus' disciple who betrayed him, right? And, if Jesus is going to get betrayed, who are we, right? And I never forgot his responses to it, and I just saw it all the time. Like people would like just take advantage of my dad or try to take advantage of him, especially like before I started to work along with him, before I moved home to be in the business full time. There were a lot of opportunities that we either missed or we shouldn't have got into, all because my old man was what I felt was too trusting. And, he never felt a way about it. He never looked at it as a negative. For him, it was all about, allowing God to pretty much order his steps, right? And he's putting his focus and trust in a higher power and not human beings, not man, right? So I remember one time in particular, there was this gentleman who used to work for our organization. I'm not going to give too much details. I think I've said this story a few times, but I think it's a good point here to share it, just to bring some, some meat to the subject that we're talking about today, talking about trust issues. And, this gentleman worked for our organization, and he would arrange for my dad to, speak certain places or whatever. So you can just call him a manager or whatever. So someone that books used to arrange for my dad to, speak at different events or for different individuals. And, he would control all the booking. He would negotiate all the deals. He would get all the contracts. All my dad had to do was sign the contracts and go on. Now, again, this guy has been he was a part of the organization for years before I even came along. Him and my dad go way back, right? So there was a relationship already there, a friendship that was already there, that you would think was already there. And, my dad did the events. I think it was maybe a year worth of events that he did. And my dad never really focused on compensation, right? He just kind of believed in, what was going to happen at the event, focusing on what he wanted to say, how he wanted to speak or teach or inspire or empower, or, those type of things. He trusted other individuals to focus on the business. So when it came to compensation, his thing was, you guys deal with that and just, kind of either cut a check or, wire the funds or, whatever the case. And for that particular year, no funds ever came in. And he never really paid attention to it because, I guess eventually he figured it would come in. And I think at some point he kind of just forgot about it because he was like super busy. So there was a point where I came into the business and we started to kind of change up the way that we operated from a organizational standpoint, the way that we booked events or, the way payments were made and just like normal business operations. I came in and I saw some holes that we needed to fill, and I started to fill those holes. In filling those holes, I noticed that there were some discrepancies with the books, right? So, okay, we didn't really think anything of it. We kind of knew that there were things that may have gone unnoticed or unaccounted for, which I'm sure was fine. It wasn't that big of a deal. So we did a little audit of everything just to figure out like what it was and what exactly was missing, because none of us could have figured it out. So the auditor that we had come on, he realized, he came to us. Long story short, he came to us and he was like, we have about $200,000 that's missing, right? There was a contract that was signed. This amount of funds should have been paid, wasn't paid. And, all signs pointed to this guy, not saying at the time that he took it, but he would have a better explanation as to what would happen, right? So we spoke to him, and he was like, the money was never received. We never cut a check. I'll contact the folks so that they could get it sorted. So so we trusted him to do that because, again, he was a part of our organization. Some time went by. I followed up on it, and it was just like always brushing it off. Yeah, I'll get into it. Sorry, I forgot, and this and that. So it got to a point where I was like, all right, let me just contact the organization myself. So contacted them, followed up. Hey, I'm not sure if such and such reached out to you guys, but we were going through our books and noticed that you guys, we don't think you guys, kind of paid us yet or whatever. We were just following up on when the payment can be made. Now, mind you, this is maybe a year or two after the event, right? So the individual that we were talking to was like, we paid you guys, right after the event. This was years ago. And we were like, okay, but we're not seeing where the funds were received. And they were like, well, we can send you the invoice, we can send you the receipts, and where the individual signed that the funds were received. So they sent that information. Turns out that the funds were paid, it was received, and this guy signed for the funds, right? So at that point, it's like, all right, man, like what is going on? Because there's no explanation as to why. Like we didn't think that he would forget or would have forgotten that those funds were received, or even that he signed confirmation that those funds were received. So we had another conversation, asked him again, just wanted to see like what his story would be. Story was the same, funds weren't received. I'll reach out to the organization. So then, we kind of brought what evidence we had and was like, we spoke to the folks ourselves. Here's what they gave us. This is your signature. Do you care to explain? And he was dumbfounded at first, right? Because I guess, before I came on, no one really, followed up with stuff like, would kind of be micromanaging what he did or the office that he oversaw or whatever, which is a mistake, I guess, on our part. But, I think all of this happened for a reason. I know I learned a lot from it, so I think this was a good learning experience for me. But nonetheless, things were found out, and we had a conversation, and he denied it. And turns out that he didn't only withhold payment from us, he withheld payment from some other persons that contributed to the event, from whether it's like catering or promotional items. That's what I want to say. So it was an issue even in that aspect, and it became a legal issue, right? Because those individuals, it was a big contract for them because it was a pretty big event, and they did not receive funds. It hurt their business. A few organizations, and some of those organizations went belly up because of this situation. So it became an entire legal matter. And I just remember, like, my dad, even in that situation, going through all of this, having all of those conversations. We met with the guy quite a few times. In each meeting, he denied, his involvement or his knowledge of, anything. Right? He couldn't tell where the funds went, why they weren't dispersed to where they should have been dispersed to. And my dad was just like, look, I understand, like, whatever happened. I just want you to admit it. And so we could move forward, right? Because we're already a few years past. We'll figure out how to deal with the situation. But I just want you to, like, just be honest with us. And he still denied it. And, to the point where we had to have a larger meeting with some of the other vendors that were a part of the entire the entire event that our organization should have paid, that we didn't pay. So it, started to look bad on not just this gentleman, but on us, because the entire time they were saying, like, Dr. Myles Munroe and his organization are thieves, and like there was just things that we weren't even aware of that was happening because of this discrepancy. So we met with him, did all of this, right? And kind of got to the bottom of it, like, all right, you were being dishonest. This is exactly what happened. So for me, I was expecting, it to be a legal issue. Like, we're going to call whoever the authorities that we needed to call, because it was the government was involved as well. So this was a part of a government event, a government contract was involved. So I figured we were going to contact all the legal authorities we needed to contact, and everything was going to go from a legal perspective. But my dad didn't do any of that. He went as far as to still wanting to allow this individual to be a part of the organization and have the same role that he had. So it was almost like, he immediately forgave him, understood the situation, or tried to be understanding about the situation, tried to empathize as to why this gentleman would have done this, and just trusted him even more, or ignored what had happened, and just kind of really focused, or wanted to focus on mending whatever relationships, or trying to deal with the issue as to, okay, why would you do this? And that made me upset. Like, I remember being so furious at the time, and my dad and I had a side conversation. I was like, man, what are you doing? Like, how can you still want him to be a part of this organization, and still want him to like handle funds or handle negotiations and stuff like that? And he just was like, man, because I believe in this gentleman. I've known him for some time, and he went on to say like things like, you don't understand the relationship, you don't understand like who he is or why he may have done what you've done. So when it comes to situations like that, because I've learned to just allow my dad to kind of be the leader that he wanted to be, or to trust him in that he knows what he's doing, I didn't really push too hard about it. But that incident always stuck out in my head, because that was the first time like I dealt with something that, from a business perspective, that had so much effect not just us, but on other organizations. So, to bring that story to a close, we decided to part ways with the gentleman. So we restructured the organization, made some changes, made good with all the other vendors that were involved, and the situation kind of was put to a close. Years later, there were some other situations that came up, not as drastic as that, but still situations where there were individuals that my dad would have known or that we would have known, and there were issues still where trust was jeopardized, right? And for me, it just started to pick at me, and I just was like, man, we can't even trust people that we've known for years, people that I felt should have loved the family, should have loved my dad, should have loved the things that we were doing as an organization, and want to support us instead of kind of harming us as an organization, or as a whole, as a family, or whatever they saw themselves being a part of us as. And I, again, had a lot of conversations with my dad. Like, how are you so trusting of people, man? Like, why do you not like recognize things that happen and then kind of nip them in the butt at the time? And his response is always, because I'm not focusing on the individual on the outside. I'm focused on the individual on the inside, the light that I see within them. I wanted to highlight that and bring that out, kind of, shuffle past or kind of maneuver past the flesh or their physical appearance. And when I say physical appearance, I'm talking about like the physical things that they would have done, like lying, stealing, being untrustworthy or whatever the case. He looked past that and kind of wanted to pull out that good spirit that he knew was there. He knew that it existed. And I just always was in awe of that, right? And for me, I would, in my own, personal time, I would be having conversations with God, and I'd be like, man, I would love for you to do that for me one of these days. Like, I want to have the wherewithal to look past someone that is blatantly doing me wrong, whether emotionally, physically, or professionally, or spiritually, whatever those cases, and look for the good inside of them, because that's a good character trait to have, I feel. And I really didn't understand it, or I didn't get it until my dad passed away. You know, I remember when he passed, and I had a conversation with Derek Luke, the actor. You know, the guy that played Antoine Fisher. He spoke. He reached out to the family when everything happened, and just kind of was giving his testimony on how my dad's book, In Pursuit of Purpose, you know, kind of changed his life, and he felt so connected to my father ever since. You know, he was a young teenager or a young adult, or you know, whatever point it was in his life, and he just felt so drawn to reach out to the family and just, you know, wanted to, I guess, just connect, right? So we connected. We kind of met up, and we were just, you know, we met up for lunch, met up for a few dinners or whatever, just kind of having discussions. And at some point, the conversation came up about, you know, this type of situations with trust and stuff. And I would tell him, you know, my dad's response to me, and I would be like, man, I just couldn't understand that, because I think we were talking about, you know, one of the things that I learned from him, or that I observed from him, you know, over the years. And for me, you know, his way of trusting people, or his way of ignoring the bad and focusing on the good, you know, was always a good trait, something that I wanted to bring into my way of living. And I remember Derek told me, you know, he reminded me of the Bible verse, and my dad told me this Bible verse a few times as well, but I never really understood it until this moment. And the verse says, you know, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And, you know, Derek just went on to explain, like, you know, your dad had no care or concern of putting his trust in man or putting his trust in human beings. Like, his trust was in God. So the focus went up, right? Not forward or not out. You know, all of his attention and his focus and his desires went up. And the individuals that, you know, would come around, whether it was for friendships or for business partnerships or for spiritual mentoring or whatever it was, my dad really didn't care of what their motives were. He wanted to be a light to them. And he looked past their shortcomings, because he knew that as long as he put his focus up towards, you know, his father, his path would be guided. Everything would be taken care of. And that really changed my perspective on the way that I dealt with people from that point on. You know, I think when it comes to trust issues, you know, no man is perfect. You know, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. All of us are dealing with imperfection, right? And so there are a lot of shortcomings and a lot of shortfalls that we're going to experience or we're going to come to in life. And I think that for that reason, we shouldn't put our trust in individuals. And that's not saying that we shouldn't trust people, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we should trust that God is going to guide our steps, as he's going to order our steps. And that's in anything, right? In friendships, in relationships, in our spiritual walk, in our professional careers. You know, that's why, you know, everything that we do, we should really look to God to be a punching board, right? A punching bag to bounce ideas off of, for him to say, you know, yes, I think this is good, or to give us signs as to the decisions that we should make. And whatever the case, you know, whatever decisions we have, whatever we're doing on earth, whatever it is that we feel like we're dealing with on earth, we should take to him and do it so that he can guide us in those many situations. And just know that, and have faith that, you know, the things work out according to his will. So whether it be good or bad, or whether we view them as good or bad, because it's all relative, it's working out for our good at the end of the day. And, you know, I know that may be difficult for us to do, you know, like just at the snap of a finger. But for me, you know, like I say, it's something that I've been working on, or I've been observing from my dad for quite some time. And then, you know, having that revelation in that conversation with Derek, and then kind of living that over the past, you know, 6 years, I've now gained a better control over the way that I respond to individuals, or the way that I trust individuals. Like, I'm not focusing on them. I'm not focusing on the human that's in front of me. You know, I'm focusing on God's guidance and his guiding me through these many situations and through these many relationships. You put your trust in man, you're going to be disappointed. So putting our trust in our Father, our Heavenly Father, I think it does wonders for us as individuals. It does wonders for those that are around us who are observing us, because, like I said, the way that my dad responded, because I observed that it had an effect on me. So even though I may not have understood it at the time, like right now, especially now, when I deal with situations, I'm able to think back and be like, all right, I know my expectation shouldn't be for this person to fail or for this person to succeed. My expectations should be as low as possible, because my trust is in God and in knowing that, whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever decisions I make, whoever I decide to, go into partnership with or go into friendship with, as long as I bring it to you, you're going to guide me through those situations. So I'm not going to, focus too much on the outcome or the circumstances that are at hand. I'm just going to give it all to him, and I'm not going to worry about it. And, just allow whatever happens to happen. And that's kind of how I live now. And I think that's a great way to not be stressed, right? And not be worried or to lose sleep over a lot of situations or a lot of relationships. I think as individuals, we all grow differently. We all experience different times in our lives where we have to pull on our strengths. We have to try and pull on or not be able to do things because of our weaknesses. And it's just who we are as individuals. Like I say, all of us are imperfect beings, striving to be perfect, but always falling short of perfection. And I think as long as we have that mentality of knowing that our trust shouldn't be in man, but should 100% be in our spiritual Father, I think it'll give us a whole lot more focus, a whole lot more peace, when dealing with situations, because we understand it is not in our control. And, like I say, our trust is in God, man. And as long as we bring it all to him, we have faith and knowing that he will direct our path, and he doesn't want harm to come to us. And, whatever happens to us happens for a reason. And at the end of the day, it's all being done for his honor and his glory. Yep. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, just in dealing with trust issues, because I know this is something that we deal with a lot as individuals, as young adults especially, right? There's, friendships, relationships that we go through that are hard to deal with just because of the individuals involved or the emotions that we have involved, the time that is there. So when we're disappointed, we start to lose trust in man, right? And we start to become pessimistic. Or not everyone, right? But a lot of us do. I know I did. Started to become very pessimistic about, a lot of situations and a lot of relationships. And it wasn't until, like I said, I dealt with this situation that I started to realize I can't put that on another human being. I can't put that on another human being to be perfect or to be the perfection that I see in my mind or in my heart, where I can't even be that, right? Because I'm not going to 100% of the time be honest, or 100% of the time be this Jesus-like individual, right? Because we're all imperfect beings, man. So, just understanding that truth and knowing that, at the end of the day, God has me. God got me. I lay my foundation on that, or I lay that as my foundation. And I think as long as I build on that, everything else will be taken care of, man, because it's not on me. It's really on his guidance. All right. So again, I wanted to just kind of say that, just kind of do this episode on just talking about things that I deal with as an individual, deal with as a young adult, a young professional, a guy who just really wanted to extend my experiences and try to help you guys who are dealing with, guys and girls, or men and women, who are dealing with similar situations. Because I know that, I've learned over the years that, we the things that we experience, we're not experiencing them all by ourselves, right? I'm not the only one that is going to experience the thing that I experience. If I'm experiencing it, there's a chance that there's a large percentage of the population of this world that is experiencing the same thing. And that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing with this podcast, because I don't want to be able to get over or to really understand situations that I go through and come out good on the other end and not share that experience or not share those steps that you can take to maybe come out on the other side yourself. So yeah, man, I hope that this has helped someone out there in dealing with trust issues. I know it's a big thing, especially with this new generation and the way that we're so tapped into our emotions, right? And everything happens from an emotional state of being right now. And I think the more we can understand how to deal with those emotions and the different things that we experience and feel, the better it is we'll be able to relate to others, especially when it comes to relationship and trust. All right. So now for this segment, I wanted to get into one of my favorite parts of the show. You know what that sounds mean? That sound means that we're now getting into the milestone segment of the Myles High podcast. And really with the milestone segment, it's just a thought, a word, something that I want to share, just to leave with you, just to help you along your day. And, in dealing with, the subject of trust issues, it's considered a weak area that we experience, right? And I just wanted to go read this thing that I kind of penned a few years back, and I felt like it helped me in those types of situations, and maybe it could help you. So for this episode's milestone, I want to say this. So your weak area may be something you struggle with throughout your entire life. For example, I'm an introvert, and I was a very shy person when I was much younger. I consider that a major weakness for me because I did not really socialize well. I didn't converse well in public settings amongst people who I did not know, and I always felt intimidated speaking in front of a crowd. For you, your weakness may be disorganization, trust, not being able to trust, laziness, procrastination, impatience, etc. I'm sure there are many more, but those are just some examples for you to understand what I want to share with you on this particular topic. So how do you work on your weaknesses? And here are 6 tips that I'd like to give just to show you how to maybe work on some of the weaknesses that all of us may experience as individuals. The first is to recognize and accept your weaknesses. So we shouldn't deny them. We should say them out loud, like, I am weak in this area. I have this issue. I need help with these things as a part of my life. Number 2, maximize the positive sides of your weakness. So I knew that even though I was maybe not able to trust, I knew that I loved to meet new people, and I loved to, work in a collaborative effort. So, I know that's kind of counterproductive in a sense, but for me, I knew because of my love for people and meeting new people, especially as a family, our family really cared for and about people. I knew that was a positive aspect. Even though I may not trust you, it's not going to stop me from starting a relationship or trying to build a relationship, right? Even though I may be pessimistic in the beginning, I knew that wouldn't hinder me from, wanting to start a new friendship or a business partnership or whatever the case. So that was a positive thing that I would take out of even the weak spots or moments that I had. The third is be confident. Try to be as confident as you can. Even within your weakness, try to look for those things that allows you to hold on to the positive side of things. Number 4, practice using tools that are available to you. And that's just like, reading about your weaknesses, finding resources that you may be able to help yourself out with, right? So whether that's talking to a therapist, talking to a spiritual advisor, reading or finding a book or an article on the things that you deal with, just to try and gain some knowledge and understanding on what it is you're dealing with and maybe how you can overcome that. The 5th is surround yourself with individuals who are stronger in your area of weakness. And that's the most important. I feel that the the more we can observe others dealing with the things that we deal with, but they're doing it from a position of strength, it teaches us how to be strong in those situations. It's what I did with my dad. So, a lot of the things that I wasn't strong on, like public speaking, being able to trust persons, I was very weak in those areas. Being around him taught me how to, gain some confidence, to gain some understanding and knowledge about my weakness and about how to overcome them. So I think that's a very important point. Surround yourself with individuals who are stronger in your area of weakness. And then number 6, look for ways to serve others with the same problems. So which is what I'm doing now, and this is, I feel like this is a great milestone for this episode, because I've learned to deal with a situation that I had issues with, I had problems with. I've learned how to overcome it. Maybe not 100%, but better than I was for sure, 15, 20 years ago. So being able to share that information with you in hopes that you'll be able to do the same, and hopefully you're able to overcome your weaknesses and the things that you fall short on, and then you share those experiences and triumphs with others, and then it's just a continuous cycle, right? So again, I think this has been a great podcast for me, for the mere fact that, again, this is something that I feel a lot of us deal with as individuals, and we all can use a little help in the area of trusting and dealing with our trust issues. So hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Thanks again for joining. Remember to subscribe to the Myles High podcast. Check out my YouTube page, Myles Munroe Jr. Hope to see you guys on the next episode of the Myles High podcast. Peace.